The cold air of a crisp November evening in 1989 hung heavy over Berlin as the world stood on the cusp of history. That day, November 9th, was supposed to be just another one in a divided city, but it became a symbol of hope, freedom, and the power of ordinary people to change the course of history. The Berlin Wall had stood for 28 years, a concrete divide between East and West, separating families, friends, and a nation. It was a symbol of the ideological battle between East and West during the Cold War, a harsh reminder of the oppression that East Germans lived under in the Soviet-controlled zone. The wall was more than just a physical barrier. It represented a fractured world, where people were unable to connect and experience life freely. But by the fall of 1989, cracks were appearing in the communist regime's power. Across Eastern Europe, governments were beginning to crumble, and people were pushing for change. In East Germany, protests were growing louder, and demands for greater freedom were becoming impossible to ignore. On the evening of November 9th, the East German government made a seemingly insignificant announcement. Citizens would be allowed to cross into West Berlin, effective immediately. The announcement, delivered during a press conference, was a misunderstanding, unclear and rushed. The journalists, hungry for change, reported it as if the wall was opening without restriction. Soon, thousands of East Berliners, many of them with no idea of what was happening, began to pour toward the wall, their hopes rising with every step. The guards at the wall were overwhelmed, confused by the crowd and the unexpected turn of events. And in a moment of spontaneous yet inevitable action, the gates opened, and the wall began to fall. What followed was chaos, joyous, jubilant chaos. People climbed over the wall, chipped away at the concrete, and reunited with friends and family they hadn't seen in decades. For the first time in nearly 30 years, the barrier between East and West was gone. It wasn't not just the physical wall that had crumbled. It was the ideology that had kept people apart, the oppressive system that had ruled for so long. That night, Berlin became one city again. The celebrations echoed around the world. The fall of the Berlin Wall marked the end of an era, the beginning of a new chapter, and the triumph of freedom and unity over division. Though the wall itself was not fully dismantled that night, its symbolic fall reverberated across the globe. It was a moment when history shifted, and the walls of oppression began to crumble. November 9, 1989 will always be remembered as the day when the Berlin Wall fell, and with it, the barrier between East and West, between fear and hope.